Good evening. I'm Taggart. This is Brandon, and you have stumbled across what is it called? The Tag
the brand.
and Brand
This is our brand
podcast. The Brand
Yep.
and Tragrout contest.
Ooh,
Today,
that was actually pretty good.
Thank you. Today is a special episode. We're taking a break from our regular scheduled program to provide to you an episode.
A Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, an episode of our Patreon exclusive series called The Beginning to the End, where we watch the first episode of a TV show and then the very last episode of a TV show and nary in between. So usually it's a show we've never seen before that we've done, a show or two that we have seen. And today we're going to do a little bit of a special twist on this show's format also. So it's a special episode that we're sharing with the world of this Patreon exclusive, but also a little twisty on it. We're going to watch the first and last episode of Jeopardy, in which it was hosted by Alex Trebek. Of course, we all know that there's a lot of controversy. Not controversy. What words am I saying? A lot of things. A lot of not so good.
There's
the choosing
a little bit
of a new host.
Yes.
A hullabaloo. Yeah.
Yes.
On picking a new host, and they had one or two, and then nope. But we thought it would be cool amongst all of this to explore this episode. And I don't know about you, but I had a good time watching these two episodes.
Oh, yeah. So specifically, we are looking at when the series was rebooted-ish in 1984 and first brought on Alex Trebek, the awesome and very lovable Alex Trebek. And we also watched the last episode, his last taped episode that aired in January of this year.
Yeah.
So 1984 to 2001 is our gap here.
I know.
40.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yes, there was Jeopardy beforehand, and, there's going to be Jeopardy afterwards, maybe. But
you don't think of Jeopardy and think of daytime Jeopardy from the 60s, like you think of Alex Trebek Jeopardy.
Right,
I mean,
100%.
Yeah, 40 years almost. Please. And it was interesting because I've watched a couple episodes with some of the guest hosts and things like this, and I've heard a couple of them speak about how hard that job is.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, getting into this just here, a little bit of backstory on, basically, my experience with Jeopardy, and Tiger will talk about your experience with Jeopardy just kind of as a whole.
Uh-huh.
It was something you kind of stumbled on every once in a while. For me, I didn't watch it, religiously day after day.
Right.
And everything. I know the format. Everybody knows the rules more or less, and the songs, and obviously everybody knows Alex Trebek and all that kind of different stuff. But I didn't watch it consistently enough to realize how fast-paced it really is.
Oh,
it is,
and especially
brutal,
especially nowadays.
Oh yeah, nowadays. I mean, we'll get to this. It is you ask for your category as one of the keywords. You don't even say $400 or even 400. You literally just say Brooklyn 4, Brooklyn 4. You just blow past and try to get as many questions out. And we'll talk about the strategy
right.
a little bit later. But yeah, so what's been your kind of history with Jeopardy over its your whole lifetime, basically.
Well, I mean, that's basically, it's not any different to you. It's not like my family sat and watched it every day that it was on or whatever. I don't even know what day it was on. I don't even know what channel it was on. Like,
right.
But like every now and then it would be on and you would watch and you'd be like, oh, I don't know any of these answers. My biggest, okay, so I was never great at Jeopardy when I watched it when I was younger. So it wasn't that exciting to me or whatever. Because you want to be good at the game, you want to be at home being like, oh, this and this, what is Samuel Jackson, whatever, right? But so my longest stint of watching Jeopardy, quote unquote, was when they did Rock and Roll Jeopardy on VH1 towards the end of my high school years, because I was way good at that game. So of course, it wasn't Alex, it was somebody else, and it was all rock and roll questions, and a lot of times they had, like, actual rock and roll artists and stuff playing the game, and Mark McGrath, I remember, was the best, and he played a lot on that. Anyways, but same format, same anything, and so a couple of things when we were watching this, just like overall, I thought about, of course, kind of getting back to what I was saying about how hard the job is, and in watching the first episode, even though we're not really on it yet, I was like, Alex was good at this from go.
Oh yeah, he had been hosting stuff for a while. He had done like a different version of Double Dare and like several different contest stuff, but even just like getting the questions, the clues, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
He never hesitated, never like faltered even in that first one, No,
it was amazing. I was like, whoa. And the other thing I wanted to say was, it's weird because we know the game now, because it's been around for so long, but thinking of the format of that game, and just like reading a answer to get a question, it's so weird. It's such a weird format. Why would the whole world know how to play that game? It's only because it's been on forever and it's been so popular. It is weird.
And parodied in everything.
Right,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So weird.
So, an interesting note about this. So I watched this with my partner and everything, and she confessed that for the longest time, growing up and watching it, she understood you have to answer in the form of a question, but she didn't really associate that the question was supposed to be the question that the clue answered. So if it's like, the question is, what is water? The clue is supposed to answer that question but it is like the most out, like if you reversed it and like played it like if Jeopardy was backwards, like I think there was like a question, I'm trying to think of a good one where it's just like, like the answers are the questions are so basic. It's like, what is water? Right. What is a piano? Who is Martin Luther King? Like that kind of stuff. But it's like, this was the the first river to da 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 da, and you're like, what is the Rhine or whatever? And you're like nobody would answer your question. Like it's like but who is Meryl Streep? And it's just like, she played this and this and this and da da da. And you're like, that answered very little of my question.
Right, but but I think the point is to provide the quote unquote question in a format that we don't usually hear a question. Like, that's the point of it, right? Is that you're saying
a response to a clue, yes,
as a statement,
right?
To make it kind of off-putting in a way, because it's not something you're normally going to hear that in that format and then have to answer it the way you do. I think that's the point. But you're not going to be like Water
just imagine
is hydrogen.
Yeah.
Right.
Combining the elements, it's like the basic elements of hydrogen and oxygen formulate this molecule, which is also known in like several states of matter. What is water? You're like, what?
Right.
Like, how is that? And so I can imagine how, like, in 1960, whatever, when this first came on, like, the pitch meeting of, like, it's like, okay, we're going to do a quiz show, but we're going to give the answers and make the contestants come up with the questions. Ooh, nice. Like,
right. No, totally.
Just like that's what's going to set us apart. And it's interesting because it's such a high stress, highly, quickly paced game.
Right.
That screws people up. Like,
yeah.
You will lose money because you just are like, Fargo. I mean, what is Fargo? It's like, sorry. And just like, yeah. So let's get to the actual episodes.
Let's do it.
Okay. It's 1984 in all its glory.
Oh my God. So this episode aired September 10th, 1984. And I must say that, I mean, the Jeopardy board is all old CRT TVs.
Okay.
And
keep going.
And the categories are like, from what I could tell, they're actual set pieces. Like,
they're cards.
Boards painted with stuff on them because they have to be somewhat substantial because they have like fluorescent tubes, like
illuminating the outside of them.
Yeah, but in like through the card itself, and then coming through and framing it, and and the big Jeopardy behind with the fluorescent tubes going through the middle is
that
classic.
Font is so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so a comment on the TVs as you put it out. Like, the production value of this show was to the limit. Like, good.
Oh, yeah.
And everything. But those TVs, so you got to think that there are, whatever, like, there's 8 categories, right? And each one has
5
things, right? So there's 40 TVs. And, later on they get TVs to do the actual top part too, right?
Right.
The actual categories.
Right.
But 40 TVs. TVs were not cheap.
No.
TVs were expensive back then. And so I did a little bit of history.
Did you?
Reporting here. A little bit of investigating here.
Uh-huh.
To give you some context, I didn't look too much into this, but in 1980, a 19-inch color TV, 19 inches. That's, I mean,
nothing.
Your iPad is bigger than that. was $600.
Holy bucket.
Okay, so let's just say that they're about probably 20-inch TVs or 19-inch TVs. That with inflation and all that kind of stuff today would be like, that same thing would cost like the equivalent. I can't even figure out how this is actually trying to calculate it, because it says a $600 TV in 1984 would cost like $8.92. That doesn't make any sense.
What?
So, the prices of televisions were 89% lower. Okay, so yeah, sorry. It's calculating this backwards. Basically, it's 89%
higher.
Oh, wait, hold on. Higher. Yeah, so a single TV, would be like, like 100 times more? I don't know what this is trying to tell me. 600.
So 600 plus 534.
Yeah. Anyway,
So
this is bad podcasting.
It'd be about $1,100 bucks. $1,100 for per TV, and if there's times 8 times 5, holy
so I mean,
buckets.
That's
ridiculous.
that is so much money just invested in TVs to make it so it gives the number, the dollar amount, and then switches to the thing. But you couldn't see it back then. I mean, even with what was her name, Lois, like even with her humongo glasses, like you couldn't read that clue from that far away. I don't think.
No,
like,
but
it's got to come up better.
Yeah, but do they actually read them? Like that's, I guess,
that's true.
Your strategy. I would think you're just listening to the clue. You wait for it to fully visualize on the TV, so you can hit your button then.
Hold up, though. This is something that actually is mentioned in like the preamble, because we watched this on a re-release of that thing.
Right.
They didn't have to wait, and Alex says that. He's like, once you know the answer, buzz in.
I thought he said once the question is realized, you can buzz in. Now I didn't know exactly what that meant, or had materialized. I don't know how he said it. I took it as soon as the question is on the screen, you can buzz in.
Right.
But he doesn't have to be done reading it.
Right, which is different. Because nowadays, he has to be done reading it.
Interesting.
And this was the frustration that I had when I played a digital version of this with a roommate who was actually on like a junior Jeopardy, like legit. Like, and he had like the home version and stuff. So everybody like, one person had the keyboard, one person had the mouse and everything. And you had to like buzz in by pressing like a specific button. He crushed me because he had the timing.
Right.
I would be like, oh, I know this. Boop. And I would go just like a split second too soon, or I would be right after him because he knew exactly when to buzz in and had literally trained himself to buzz in at the exact right moment so that he got the answer position, I guess, if you want to call that the right to answer, in which you have 5 seconds so you can then process it a little bit more.
Right.
So you're like, okay, I know about this. This is about ancient Egypt. Got it.
Well, that's interesting.
Who
enough.
is
with
Cassiopeia?
Right. Well, with our 3 contestants on this first show, Greg, Lois, and Frank, Frank did that a few times. He buzzed in thinking, I'm going to come up with this answer, and then couldn't.
Yeah.
So, after a while, I was like, Frank, you need to give up that strategy because it's not doing you any favors. You're not getting enough time to pull those questions out.
So we got Alex coming in with his sweet fro, his dark sweet fro, his like Magnum PI mustache, and his like salmon silk pocket square.
Yeah.
He is doing it to the max, but you don't see him a lot. Like it's usually just questions, or it's clues and contestants, and everything. We got Frank, who's in ad sales. We got Lois, who is newly married or newlywed, and is not showing a lick of skin. She is silked up from wrist to neck.
Got the high neck, yeah. High neck dress.
All the way to the turtleneck, and everything. And then we got Greg, who, again, my partner's just like, it looks like his mom got him that suit. He's wearing like a vest and everything. But he is an energy demonstrator.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch that. I caught that a little bit at the beginning. I was like, an energy demonstrator? What the crap is that? But he shows us in the
Oh my God.
little
Well, that was like the longest contestant interview ever because they let him do that whole demonstration. And I was like, this would not fly today, Greg.
Nope.
But he did this whole thing about shooting a particle at an atom, and he blew up a balloon and like somehow split it in half. He was like, now 2 atoms. Energy.
Yeah,
and we're like, oh my gosh, dude, that's so bad.
Like, my question is like, because they obviously feed Alex a little bit about them. Like, I don't know if they meet him necessarily. No, but he's always got some little tidbit.
A pre-interview, and then he gets the card, and he references what they agreed to talk about, basically. You know?
Oh, Lois, you're newlywed. It's like, what was that? Oh, a couple weeks ago. How long? And it's like, but the key fact is, how long did you know your fiance beforehand? Oh, we knew each other for 13 years. Oh, I don't care about your job. Moving on.
Oh, my favorite thing, though, after Greg does his demonstration, Alex goes, Greg, I'm going to need you to calm down.
Yeah, he's like, try and relax.
Try and relax is what he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, nice, like, slight little barb. Hilarious.
And that's
good job, Alex.
It, man. He's got it, like we said, he's got it from day one. It's no question why he did this forever. Because he's got it in lock. And so we go over that. Another favorite of mine is when they're panning over the categories. Mm-hmm. It is the shakiest camera. Like, it is literally a guy probably holding a shoulder-mounted camera, just like, okay, okay. Like, it is so...
Right, and I don't know if you could see it in the regular Jeopardy round, but in Double Jeopardy, there was a light that was astray or something, and so it washed out kind of one of the headings, and I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, we gotta roll, man. We gotta tape.
It's like, you can't really see this.
Oh man, so they go through, and I thought to myself before this started. Yeah. I was like, these questions are gonna be so basic.
Well, that's kind of what I thought too. Yeah,
like they're gonna be because like the Jeopardy audience has matured so much. Like it's like Liz Lemon says, talking about like writing movies back in like the 50s and 60s. It's like, oh, you could throw any plot at them because they hadn't seen anything. It's like It's like today they're more so sophisticated. So I'm thinking like these questions are going to be like, you know, what type, or it's like this type of pie is, you know, America's favorite. It's like, burp, what is apple? You know, like, well, just like the most basic questions.
3 questions were pretty softball-y.
I don't remember what they were, but
I don't remember what they were either. But the first one was from the animals category. And I was like, really? This is the question we're starting with? Again, don't remember what it was. But it was like, I don't know. It was
like one of them was like, one of the harder ones was like, it's like this, it's like, you know, related to the pig, its name means river horse. It's like, it's like, what is a hippopotamus? Duh. Like, everybody knows that.
I didn't get that.
What?
Thanks for throwing me under the bus.
Oh, jeez. Oops.
I think what threw me off was close relative of the pig. So I'm like, I'm thinking warthog. I'm thinking boar. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I ever really thought of a hippo as a close relative to a pig. Obviously, it must be. But no, so I wasn't even on that vein. And then, of course, it was done and passed, and I was like, oh.
So here's the other key thing about Jeopardy is he uses the term Jeopardy a few times in this episode.
Yeah.
Meaning that people are negative. Or he says it at the beginning. He says, but the Jeopardy is... if you get it wrong, we will deduct that dollar amount from your score.
Right.
So he outlined specifically that the whole premise of this is when you hit the buzzer, you are in jeopardy because you're either going to get money or have money taken away. There are no, if you buzz in, there are no freebies and everything. And so he mentions it later when he's like, oh, you're in jeopardy when somebody goes negative. But that's like the only time it's like reference I've ever like. Oh, okay, that makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, well, it ties the name of the show a little bit better than how we understand it now. It's just like that's just what it's called, but we don't really think of the word Jeopardy in its definition necessarily.
It's like dangerous or peril or whatever. It's So that's basically it. It's just like, oh well, unlike other answer shows, if you buzz in and guess wrong. It's it's Jeopardy, but so we went through. So did you keep score for yourself?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I did it by round. So I did the Jeopardy round, which is the first round, and then I did Double Jeopardy, and of course Final Jeopardy. So I didn't total them together. Okay. I just did them per round. So I don't know if you did the same or not. If not,
I did not. I can so I can whip that up. So if you want to kind of go through what were some things that stood out to you in Jeopardy, like the first round? Any standout clues or anything? Or
no,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, I didn't have any clues that I remember specifically, I guess, from the Jeopardy round. I thought it went pretty slow. Now, looking to the skipping ahead just a little and looking forward, we did 7 more questions in the Jeopardy round in the last episode.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, 6 questions is pretty significant. Like, it's the first episode, so he's not going as fast as, because he wants everyone to understand how it's going. And you never hear this at the beginning. He gives this whole preamble about how the game works and who does what and when you can answer. We kind of reference that. But he gives the
Greg's
rules
his whole thing, yeah.
Right. And so it moves a little slower, and even the questions, the contestants are going through them a little slower. So I guess that more than the clues itself, that's what I saw. Now, I did think, kind of overall, like, it started pretty easy. I think I got the first 6 or 7 questions right. Just like, okay, I'm on it. Like, this is going to be pretty easy. And I ended up getting 10 questions right and 12 questions wrong. So not even 50%, not even 500. Like I'm.
Wow!
On the Jeopardy round. Yeah.
Did you answer every one of them?
Yeah.
Did you count yourself? Oh, okay.
So
we've counted ourselves very differently.
Very differently. Well, I was like, did I get the answer right? Yes, great. Did I get the answer wrong? Then I tallied a wrong. Mostly so I could see how many questions there were, and see how many I got out of the total. But yeah. So I put a tick for every question, whether I got it wrong or right.
Got it. Okay. So I did not do that. I went Jeopardy style, if you will, where I tried to answer before the contestant to, because it's cheap if you obviously just ride somebody's coattails. But so I answered them, and if I didn't say anything, then I didn't count it, like positive or negative. And then if I did say something and it was wrong, then I gave myself the negative. If that makes sense.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So there were plenty of them where I'm like, ugh. Like, for instance, 50s TV shows.
Oh my gosh, no.
50s TV?
Yeah, didn't get any of those. Didn't get any of those.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, I mean, if I didn't know, I counted it against me. But of course, I wasn't tallying points or money, so I wasn't like taking points away or anything like that. I was just like, did I get the answer right, or did I not get it right? And that included not non-answers versus I said something different.
Right. Yeah. So okay, because I was gonna say, I'm like, well, I got like 1900 and just Jeopardy.
Nice.
The first round, but that's muting myself on all these ones that I had no idea about and everything. And then one of the things that is kind of funny is Lois, our token lady friend, she gets in the hole from like the get-go. Early. She gets like her first like 4 questions like wrong.
She was so bad. Flustered during the Jeopardy round.
Yeah. And so she's digging herself deeper and deeper, and Alex calls her on it. He's just like, you were in a deep hole.
Well, it's funny. At one point, he was like, let's see if... Well, she kind of starts a little upswing towards the end of the Jeopardy round. And as they started Double Jeopardy, because she was the lowest, she got to go first, and he was like, let's see if she can dig herself out of her hole. And then she went on a run, dude. And I was like,
she started her run on French cuisine, man.
Right.
Like, French cuisine, she was just like,
knew
boom,
all
boom,
the foreign
cuisine
questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And stuff like that. So she started her uptick. And it was very interesting because, like, Greg pretty much held on to the lead the whole time. But she and Frank just like boof, boof, boof. Like, Frank took some big swings and missed.
Oh, he did. Yes.
Yeah. He missed a couple of thousands in Double Jeopardy, and that took him down and everything like that. But it's the most basic strategy for everybody. It's like, start at the top and then work your way down. Go to the next, work your way down. It's very much like, let's just go from easier to harder. Except at the end, they did kind of flip. Like, they did
bounced
go
around a little bit. Yeah,
they went from the 1,000 up because it's like, oh crap, we're running out of time here.
Right.
It's like we need some dollars and everything, and so I think that was it's definitely not nearly as strategic as it becomes.
Sure.
It's very much like, I think I'm going to know this one. I'm going to go for it. Oh, okay. I think I'm going to do a different category, or whatever. It's not like I need to get this much amount. I need to get this much and everything. And
yeah. It was so interesting because the first episode was way more streaky than like later episodes, because you could tell like each one of them kind of had their strong categories.
Right.
Where usually the champions nowadays are strong on all categories, and they just boom, 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 boom. And so just like Lois, when she got that foreign cuisine, she just basically ran the whole thing. Frank had one early on where he missed a $1,000 question, but he hit every other one in the category. And so it was you'd get into these more, so it was a little bit more dynamic because they would get down and then they would find a category and they'd come back up, and it was a really, really close game at the end. Really, I mean, basically 3,000 point difference from the winner to the loser, like.
Right.
So, all right. So what was the final Jeopardy question? Do you remember?
So I don't remember the answer, the clue per se, but I do remember. Okay, this was actually very interesting. Yeah. It's like, what is not what? What am I talking about? It is the third Monday in January will celebrate this or something like that.
So category was holidays.
Holidays.
And it was the third Monday in January since 81 or something.
No. This is it. It said in 1986. So we're like, moreover, scratching our heads like, that's 2 years in the future.
Oh, right.
Like, and so, I'm kind of looking it up here while I'm talking, but like, so it had to be announced that this holiday is going to be a thing. And let's see here. President Ronald Reagan signed the holiday into law. Okay, what's the question? Answer. Give us the question. What do they write down?
Well, what's the question?
Yeah. Like, what's the answer? What's the question? What's the Jeopardy question?
Yeah, it's they gave 3 different answers. What is Martin Luther King? Blah blah blah.
Frank's B-Day. He said B-Day.
Well, yeah, but it was kind of garbly written, and Alex was like, "I can't make out the rest, but we'll give it to you." And then Lois put birthday.
She put B-Day.
She did put B-Day, and then Greg just wrote, "What is Martin Luther King?" And Alex was like, "We're in the category holidays, so we'll give it to you." And I was like, "I don't know about nowadays whether he would." But
no, 100%. He had to give it to him because he gave it to Frank.
Right.
So here's the thing. First off, the pens were terrible then. Like the technology.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's like 100 times worse than writing on like those little signature pads at like the grocery store. Right. And everything. So he gave it to Frank because Frank said Martin Luther King, and he did say B-Day, but the B didn't close. It was, and the dash and everything garbled together. Exactly.
Yeah, it was real chicken scratch. But so he gave it all to them. But he clarified when Lois put birthday, he was like, he double checked it seemed like, and he's like, it is his birthday and it is the holiday, so we'll give that to you.
It's to honor his birthday, yes. So it was signed into law in 1983.
Oh.
But then it was first observed on January 20th, 1986. So it was announced or signed, but they sat on it for 3 years because as a bank holiday, they have to get the something or other. And so, so it's interesting because we were like, what? Isn't this filmed in 1984? Like, what the heck is going on? So
yeah, I was pretty confused about it. I was just like, I hope we're watching the right episode. But
it's very current affairs,
right?
You know?
Right.
So I found that very interesting. That the pens were kind of crappy. He had to make a little bit of concession on Martin Luther King, not even Martin Luther King Jr. We'll give it to you, you know?
Right.
So, but then, did you notice his little jab at it wasn't a jab. It was just kind of like that kind of sucks. At the end when he was listing off the prizes.
No, I missed it.
He called Lois out for being in a hole, right?
Uh-huh.
And then he calls Greg out for only saying $1,000 or $100.
Oh yeah. He was like, he's like scared.
I was like, oh, you chicken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he forgets Frank's name. At the end, he says, well, and we have our lovely party guest for Lois and our third contestant. Thank you, everybody. And just because it's not up anymore because their answers or their questions to the last clue are up, and so he totally blanks on Frank's name and just moves on. It was priceless. It was so funny. Yeah. And so, and our third place contestant, it just keeps going. It's so good. True professional. This man.
So Frank bet all his money, and Lois basically bet all her money, and so we ended with
they had no choice.
Yeah, 8,400 to 7,500 to 5,000. Like I said, it was a pretty close ending, you know. So, but Greg still won, and then he went on to the next, day.
Right, which we didn't watch.
Right.
So.
But one thing I didn't mention, since he didn't have a returning challenger, they flipped a coin to see who went first. And Greg just happened to at the beginning, which I thought was interesting. So,
how do you flip a coin with 3 people?
You know what? We didn't see it. So
the elusive Jeopardy triple-sided coin. Yeah, exactly. So no returning champion. So we just kind of move on and everything.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Should we fast forward to 2021?
Oh, should we rate it?
Oh, I mean, we could rate it real quick. I thought it was fire. I would.
We're changing our rating scale. Okay.
No. As a rating from, they didn't even try, to a potentially hot Katie to all about it, I was pretty much all about that. Like,
I was 100% all about it.
I thought it was great. Like, I enjoyed it, and and playing was fun. Like, I didn't give you my score for the second. I got the same. I got 10 right in the Double Jeopardy as well. Though we answered, though there was more questions. So I got 14 wrong. Or not answered. Wrong or not answered. So, and I got the Final Jeopardy question incorrect. Well, I didn't actually know what to say. So I didn't.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Did you get that?
I did. Well, I just said MLK Day. I don't know if he would accept that.
Well, it's interesting because, I had a fleeting thought about Martin Luther King Day, and I did not know where in the year it landed. Like, I don't know. It's just nothing. I just never have, placed that on a timeline for myself. I'm really bad with dates to begin with. So I had a fleeting thought like that, and I was like, nah, it can't be that. And then it was, and I was like, oh, well, it just goes to show you, if you don't know, maybe go with what your instinct was.
Right. So that's our make out anniversary, so I kind of know where that comes into play. So
gross.
But yeah, so I think, like I said, I didn't track it the same way you did. I just know that 50s TV.
Oh yeah, I didn't get
rocked me.
Didn't get any of those.
One thing I did notice on that is he gave Frank the points, but he did correct him when he said an actress's name, and he said, who was blah, blah, blah. And he's like, who is blah, blah, blah. Moving on. And
right.
Because it's fine. I mean, it's the point of the question is to make make a question that works, right? Because you can say where is, Judy Garland or something like that. That doesn't make any sense. But
well, it's interesting if he was correcting him because he's like,
she's still alive.
She's still alive.
Yeah,
but a very subtle way of saying that, and a very concise way, really. Who is, and then moved on. Which is funny now. Yeah. Well, nowadays the current champion has got some gruff online because he answers all his people questions with what is Tom Hanks. Like he says what is rather than who is. And
right.
And there was a big thing, I read an article where Jeopardy responded to all these people on the internet and said, that's a perfectly valid question.
right,
to
and that's
answer
what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Because it pretty much makes almost as much sense as the who is Tom Hanks. Like it doesn't, really distinguish very much to say who versus what. Because
right.
Right, and the clue doesn't really give much detail on exactly what you're going for.
And I'm sure it's a strategy for him because he doesn't have to now change the way he
think
answers
about anything. Yeah.
any of the questions. What is
right.
is just a blanket answer and works for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
anyways,
getting into controversy. So should we look at this last episode?
Yeah. So fast forward 2001. Well, technically, they filmed it on Christmas or for Christmas. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, sounded like
there was a lot of Christmas references on there.
Yeah, it sounded like it maybe was the 25th actually when they filmed it.
Mm-hmm. Because he references it quite a few times.
Right, right. But
So Alex comes out looking strong. The set is humongous now.
Oh, it's so different. Yeah.
It is so big. And it's exactly how you would expect. Literally, if you showed somebody from 1984 the set now, they would think it's on a spaceship. It looks just like the super modern, aesthetic, and the podiums and the TVs are all crazy flat screens, and even the entry logo has got all the different things you would expect for a trivia show. There's a picture of space and a picture of animals and a picture of math and all this kind of different stuff, all the arbitrary stock photos of different things like that. So and the announcer's a lot more excited. He is he is yeah. And so
he's in it.
Mm-hmm. So we get Jim, who's an associate professor. We get Cliff, who's in software. And we get Yoshi, the returning champion. And she was an assistant or something? I missed her job title.
She is, let's see, I think I have it here. Yoshi. Okay.
And she had won 2 days in a row, I believe.
She'd only won the day before. Oh, no, you're right. She had won 2 days.
30. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 day earning, whatever. No, I don't see it.
Okay.
I thought I had it.
But yeah, so very different dress, very different attire of the day.
Sure.
We get Jim wearing just a smiley face tie and a jacket over his button up shirt and everything, and Alex is still sporting his sweet suit. He's got to have so many suits, man. Because
oh yeah,
body shape wise, he hasn't really changed that much, and so he could probably wear all the suits anytime. So he could bust out some of those sweet double breasted numbers that we see later on, in the montage and everything. but yeah, so I expected these questions to be significantly more esoteric. What was your take on them?
I don't know. I thought there was a lot more cheeky ones with little, almost hints.
Play on words or something?
Right.
Yeah.
They loved, what was it? I had it and just lost it. There was a kind of, I'm not going to be able to pull it out. But there's a clue that they used a couple times in a couple of different of the answers that get oh shoot, I wish I could remember now. But one time it totally gave me the answer. I was like, okay, this was and I can't pull it out. I can't remember what it was now. But
I definitely feel that there's a lot more subtle themes in this. Because let's be honest. Category animals.
Oh, I know.
Is like it was in the first one. Animals.
Yeah, they were very straightforward, especially in the Jeopardy round.
Yeah. Whereas these are like they're all little puns. Like there's one that's like cross-world clues instead of crossword, and he like really spells that out when he says it to make sure that people understand that. There's one where it was like Ibbing was like the clue, or Bing, or something
Bing,
like that.
It was Bing something. Yeah, Bing in quotes, so that every word that was the question had Bing in it some way. Like Ebbing and
yeah.
Like that.
So, I mean, we could just get to that right now. Like Yoshi, the first one was super basic, and it was like, what makes Pinocchio's nose grow? And she was like, what is fibbing?
Right.
And he's like, you corrected yourself in time.
Right.
And everything. And I didn't get the category when he first like panned over it or whatever. And so I didn't necessarily understand why she changed it. Because I was like...
No, I had a
oh.
similar process of thought because I was like, lying. And then when she changed it, I was like, is there like something specific in the story of Pinocchio that like
that? Yeah, exactly.
That it's like it specifically says fibbing, but no, it's because of the clue of the category of Bing, and it took me a bit to get there, but I was like,
No, I thought of the exact same thing. I was like, are we going to like the source text for like a $200 question? Like, shoot, man, like. Ooh, we will not accept lying because in the original draft of it's like
fibbing.
It's like, oh shoot, Disney, you done screwed us. Anyway, but yeah, so that made a lot more sense as they went down the question, and everything. We get Jim digging himself in to Jeopardy pretty early on. Jim did not do well in the first round. He was kind of
No, I thought for sure he was kind of dead in the water, but he came back with a vengeance in the double Jeopardy round.
Oh yeah.
And
we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then it was. I mean, Yoshi was running with it. If I remember, like Cliff was kind of keep nipping at her heels and everything, but Yoshi was just clocking everybody and had
her strategy, was like, if I feel confident about the category, I'm going to hit that $1,000 question straight off the gate.
Right. Whereas, so hers was definitely like hit the higher ends, because the other thing that we need to note, if anybody's unaware of this, is the amounts went up at some point or another. Jeopardy starts at 200 for the first round and then goes down to 1,000. Whereas before it was 100 to 500. And now, or in Double Jeopardy, now is 400 to 2,000. So throughout the years, we have doubled the amount of money in just overall. So we're always in Double Jeopardy, and now we're in Quadruple Jeopardy, technically speaking.
Okay, yeah.
So it's just to win more money. They don't really care. Like, as we saw with the TVs inflating 100, 100 times over.
Right.
It's really like arbitrary for them to be like, oh, well, this person's going to win twice as much. Because they also you don't lose the money if you go negative. So if you go negative and lose, you don't owe Jeopardy $400.
Right.
Which I think is kind of cheap. I think you should have to. You just are in whatever place and only get $1,000 or $2,000.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, you're playing for points. that then can result in money.
It's only
win.
really money if you
Yeah.
win, right? And then you get
Mhm.
consolation 1,000 or 2 if you're last or second place.
Exactly. So, but yeah, so Yoshi does pretty good. I did miss $1,000 question, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like, oh crap!
Well, I missed so many
I was
more
so
questions
confident.
in this. Like I said, we did probably 6 more questions in Jeopardy round as in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
I still got 10 right, and then I got 18 wrong or unanswered.
Yeah, I got 9 right and 1 wrong, and then however many unanswered. Yeah, so
Right.
so one of the big things on this is, as we mentioned, it is just rapid fire. It is.
It's a lot faster.
There's no breaks. There's maybe a little comment from Alex just on the answer itself, like, oh, you corrected yourself, or, oh, it's like, no, sorry. And this one, like, definitely a couple of times went to one answer, and then the third guy's like, and Alex is like, you want to try? No? Okay.
Right.
There's definitely some bounce arounds on this one for sure. When he goes to interview them, I don't know what it is, and I can't remember if I noticed it on the original or the first episode. His cards are teeny tiny. His cards are like playing cards.
Oh,
like it's
really?
not like a
No, I didn't
like
notice
a tip.
that.
It was they were so small. Like it was like literally like, like he just like has them in his hand, and it's just like, so that has to be the card. I don't know if it's the cards that he reads for the clues or the answers or what, because he has to practice those answers. He has to practice, reading those clues.
You would think, especially for things that are just hard to pronounce. Well, and we'll get to that in Double Jeopardy, because there are
But he
some
interviews
things.
them, yeah.
So I still thought Yoshi got a lot of time on her interview, didn't you?
Yeah, because definitely Jim was like, "Oh, you have a weird phobia," and he's like, "Yeah, it's something," or not phobia, but he's like, "It's the fear of acquiring more books than you will ever be able to read."
Right.
And Alex is like, "Yep, I got the same thing. It's like my den and yours probably look the same." Moving on.
Yeah.
And then Cliff, you did this like little sign, like, what was that? It's like, oh, that was a heart for, something. He's like, okay, and then moves on to Yoshi.
Yeah.
Moves on to Yoshi and asks her about calligraphy, and asks her, like 2 or 3 questions about it.
Like, she got some time to talk, and I was like, whoa, maybe Greg did have time to do that balloon gag. But,
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. Like, my question is,
I didn't realize that.
Did he tell the producers he had the balloon?
Oh, he had to have got the okay to do that.
Permission?
There's just no way. Oh, yeah.
I don't know. In 1984, I could see it. I could see it happening in 1984. I couldn't see it happening now.
Maybe. But that's part of the reason Alex hits him with that quip at the end. He's like, this is my show, Greg. Like,
you need to relax. Calm down. Yeah.
But then Yoshi got done with her thing, and he was like, okay, and now on to Double Jeopardy. Choose your thing. And we went right into it.
And we went through so many questions in Double Jeopardy.
Well, the thing about Double Jeopardy...
It went almost the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Double Jeopardy that they didn't do in the first episode is that they called out when there was only 1 minute remaining. And they started going through those questions so fast. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like Brooklyn 4, Brooklyn 2,
right.
Brooklyn 8. It's just like one keyword and then the dollar amount.
And then the question, and then they buzzed in. Right? Nope. Yep. Move on.
Yeah.
I could hardly keep up with that. So I missed a lot of those at the end.
Well, yeah, one of my favorites was was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Brooklyn 99. I was like, oh, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, sweet. But it was, and this is the subtleties that have come, throughout the years. It was questions about Brooklyn, New York from either 1899 or 1999.
Right.
And so it's just like, oh, what's a popular show? Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We should just call it that. And then let's make, our questions align with that. So, like, it's funny because, like, the categories are definitely written and then answers, clues, whatever you want to call them,
right,
are come up with after that.
To fit in.
It's not like, yeah. And so it's actually kind of funny that way.
Well, did you...
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Did you recognize that we had... On the very first episode, they talked about in the actor, they talked about in the movie The Right Stuff, this guy breaking
yes,
a barrier. Chuck Yeager. And then in this episode, I think it was in the Brooklyn category because I think he was native Brooklyn or something like that. Maybe it was some different category and I'm remembering incorrect. But they basically, they were like, what is Chuck Yeager best known for? Basically, I don't know exactly what the question was. And it was like, what is breaking the sound barrier? And
yes,
I thought that was,
we got two Chuck Yeager questions.
I thought it was so cool, kind of bookends. And by watching the first episode, I was definitely able to answer the question on the last episode. And I was like, yeah, I learned something.
That's your Slumdog Millionaire moment where you're just like, oh my gosh, I just watched the first episode of this. It's the only thing I know about Chuck Yeager.
Right. It's so funny because when that question came up in the actor, I was like, I know what it's referring to. I know it's talking about the pilot who broke the sound barrier, but I cannot think of the man's name. Like, I couldn't come up with it. And then they said it, and I was like, oh, okay, great. And then when they asked that question, Chuck Yeager, and I was like, his name came up, I was like, I know it. Because it was like the opposite question,
Right.
So, I thought that was really cool coincidence, kind of, that it was a bookend question. And then they were kind of opposites. So it was like the opposite end of the spectrum of the same question,
right?
Almost 40 years later,
right? But that's exactly this illustrates the whole thing on, this question that they are coming up with does not come up, like, in your brain does not come up with this answer, because if you asked anybody who is Chuck Yeager, they're not going to say played by this person in The Right Stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They're going to say he broke the sound barrier, and then flip that on its head. If you say, what is the sound barrier? You're not going to say native to Brooklyn or born in Brooklyn in 1899, right. Chuck Yeager. It's just such a contrived but awesomely produced formula that, doesn't make any sense. But yeah, definitely I'm not going to lie. I freaking rocked Double Jeopardy.
Did you really?
I crushed Double Jeopardy.
That's amazing. I got my my normal 10 right. Not even lying. I got 10 right on every round from every episode. And then I got the same amount wrong. I got 18.
No, go. I got 23 right.
Holy buckets.
And only answered one that I would have answered wrong for 400.
Wow.
Yeah. But we can get into the swing. Like, the frickin' swing of this episode is Jim comes out of nowhere in Double Jeopardy.
Well, I think
literally,
was he in the negative?
I think he was in the negative either at the beginning of Double Jeopardy or just right at the beginning.
Or
like one question before he might have gotten out.
Right, but then he went on a run, and I forget what it was. It was literature, I think, some kind of literature category, and I think he ran it, didn't he? Did he get all 5 right?
Probably. I can't.
It was either 4 or 5. Like
I'm not gonna lie. These usually I would take notes and all that kind of stuff. I was too busy just keeping my own score. I'm like seriously sitting there like the sound barrier 400.
Well, yeah,
like
exactly. Well,
Plato.
that was
Who
the difference between this and one of our regular shows where we'd be writing notes. We were scoring our score versus remembering the specific questions. But
so
like I said, I thought he was dead in the water, and no, the man crushed it really hard.
Cliff falls off his namesake in Double Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Because doesn't he I can't remember what Double Jeopardy was, but he just dropped it and did not
we went to by the end he was a negative 400. So he did not get to participate in Final Jeopardy.
Yeah. So Cliff walked himself out. But what happens to him is it's these dog questions, and I'm trying to think what was the category. It was some kind of pun.
Well,
I want to say
but the answer was dog.
It was dog is my co-pilot, I believe, instead of God is my co-pilot or Jesus is my. I think I'm pretty sure it was God is my co-pilot because it had dogs in
planes,
like planes and stuff like that, and so or like
right.
And so,
and I forget what the breed of dog was that he said, but he said the breed he pronounced it incorrectly.
Yeah, it was a Russian breed, and he pronounced it incorrectly, and Jim swooped in and got it.
Right, and
that because Cliff's strategy also, Cliff went for the middle all the time. He always went for that 800 level question in Double Jeopardy. Anytime he got to choose, and he did it in Single Jeopardy pretty much too, where he went with like the $400 or $600 questions, where he always went for the middle, and like because he wanted to go middle down if he could,
right,
instead of going bottom up. Because he's like,
right,
if I can answer the middle one, then I can stay on a run. Versus like Yoshi, where she's like, oh, I'm skipping to the bottom because if I don't get that, then no point, kind of a thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So he mispronounced it, and I don't even know what it was. Like I can't even.
No, I don't know the breed. Something with a T, and it was a weird word. Like, so I was like, I don't know if I've ever heard of this breed. But then it's very funny. The very next question, Yoshi
dog breed thing again. Yeah,
mispronounced Weimaraner. Weimer. She said, I don't know how she said it, but Alex was like, you did the same thing that Cliff just did, and you mispronounced it. It's Weimaraner. I'm so sorry. And
that dropped her because that was like the 2000. I believe.
Yeah, it was a heavy question.
And so, and everything. And so, because the first one was poodle. Like, the first one was a picture of a poodle in a car.
Right.
And it was like, this, it's like, da-da-da. It's like poodle. Okay. The next one was like, it was something about,
it was,
I believe, one of them was, what category does this dog fall into? Like showmanship?
Like a sports dog, or
they're like retriever. It's like, and everybody got it. 2 people got it wrong, and it's like, no, the sport category. And it's like, oh, right,
yeah,
and everything. And then it got into these like weird dog breeds. You're just like,
right,
what?
But all those at the end, that's when they're rapid firing too. They're going fast. So so that's what bottomed Cliff out, right?
And he was eliminated at that point with negative 400, And then the final Jeopardy question. What was the category? It was... I can't remember.
I just had this.
I can't remember the context of this at all.
It was... I remember what the answer was.
It was single words or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember the category, but... that's what... I remember what Jim freaking crushed it on. Was 6-syllable words.
Oh, yes. He killed...
6-syllable words.
6-syllable word.
He killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything. I was like, oh man, I've heard those, but out of context, you know.
I know. He just knew the definition so well. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. But, so the question, or the clue for Final Jeopardy was, basically, Mary Todd gave science this word.
Oh, it was females in science was the category, I believe.
Yeah, and it's like gave science this word, meaning something and state
place
and state in Greek and everything, and Jim got it right, and he bet pretty much all of his money.
Yeah.
Like, he would have been left...
Yeah, he jumped way up with that.
And then Yoshi got it right, but she only bet $300.
She didn't bet. Right? She did not bet enough. Yeah. She must not have thought that she answered it correctly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or she must not have thought that she was going to answer whatever it was correctly, because obviously you got to bid before you know what it is. But but yeah,
I think she was pretty disappointed because it wasn't that hard of a question necessarily, because the question was, or the clue was better worded. It was like, what did Mary Todd give science for, elements in the same state or slightly different states or something like that means place and state.
Right.
And, the question, what is an isotope?
Right, which I did not get. Yeah. I was 0 for 0 on the 0 for 2 on the final Jeopardy round.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like having to bet. So Jeopardy, we didn't really talk about the daily doubles because I don't necessarily remember what they were. I remember in the first episode, the audio daily double.
I was surprised that we had an audio daily double in the first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it was hit songs. And I was like, ooh, I'm not going to get any of these. And
no. That audio daily double was in Rivers and Lakes. Because that song was about a specific lake that I had never heard of, and I had heard the song. And it was an
instrumental, wasn't it?
Yeah. They just played the instrumental part of it, which sounded familiar to me, but apparently there's words in the song, and I did not know that, and it has to do with this weird lake. But
right,
yeah.
And then the daily doubles in this one. Like I said, Cliff definitely...
He had a daily double and missed it. Yeah, and he did a true daily double, so it took him down to 0, and that was a big swing, and he went for it, but he crashed and burned with that.
And so here's the fascinating thing about it is there's so much... There's so many ways, it's not one person can take it and run with it, unless you're Ken Jennings style, just literally answering everything 100% correctly.
Right.
More correctly than the judges even have written down in their research, right?
Right.
Because they've gone back and awarded him points because they're like, you're right, we looked it up and there was another, instance of this, or, this person actually came before this person. I can't remember exactly, but yes, he's retroactively gotten points back because they've done their research and been like, holy crap, like, yeah, like, his actual firstborn child, you know, was this person that died at the age of 2, and, you know, like, or something like that. It's just like, ugh. So, because everything can change with the blindness of having to bet on a category.
Oh, yeah. Final
And
Jeopardy
losing.
is a
well,
huge
even
swing.
the double.
Yeah. And the doubles can be so helpful.
Yeah.
And or
like,
not.
Really, really the only way to be assured victory is to be more than double the score of the next highest person.
Right.
And then bet less than the amount that would take you down below their double.
Right.
So,
right.
Because, like, if you're in second place, there's very... Okay, so for Jim, right?
Right.
For Jim, in this category where it's down to 2, like, you bet everything but $1. You know?
Right.
Like, you bet it all but $1, because if you get it right, then you double your score pretty much. If you get it wrong, you still have $1, and the other person could potentially get it wrong. You know, but like...
Right.
But if the person in the lead, you know, doesn't know, it's like, well, usually there's like that strategy of like, well, if he doubles his score and I go by this, then, you know, I would only have to, you know, something like...
I'd still be above.
I don't know. It's such a mind game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but he took her. He took...
Mm-hmm.
He took Yoshi by a lot. By almost double her points.
Yeah. He jumped way over her with that huge risk of basically all of his points. And so, because Alex even said, he's like, oh, you could have rounded it out to an even 2,500 or 25,000 for the day.
For the day.
For Christmas.
Right. Exactly.
And you know, they kind of go out on that, and then he's the new champion and comes back the next day, I guess. But
well, he came back. He came back whenever they started back up again, which I don't think it was. I don't know if it was the next day, but with our Ken Jennings.
Yeah, exactly. So that was filmed in December. It aired in January, and then the next one aired the next week. So they filmed it sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you're right.
And everything. So, because that aired on like January 8th or something like that. And the next one was
on the 11th. But they filmed it in Christmas, and I'm not sure exactly when they filmed. Mm-hmm. They could have filmed the next episode any time between Christmas and the 11th, really.
Yeah, and Alex died only like 10 days after his last show.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. But they did a nice tribute to him, showing a bunch of just like random clips and when he got to do some fun stuff and dress up and everything. The thing that I, you know, like about Alex Trebek in like just growing up and everything is like, you think of Jeopardy as like a very grown up show, or I did, I guess. You know, it's very much like, oh my gosh. But, you know, there was junior or kid Jeopardy and, you know, college and all these kind of different, you know, celebrity Jeopardies, all this kind of different stuff.
Right.
But he was like just a fun person as in anything like else you saw him in. Literally, I was watching, right before this, I was watching Rugrats from 1993, and there is a Jeopardy-esque episode called like Stumpers or something like that, and he plays the host.
Get out,
And so
really?
he parodies himself. And I'm like, that's Alex Trebek. That has to be Alex Trebek. It sounds exactly like him. And of course, that's what they're going for. I'm like, it couldn't be somebody like impersonating him, I guess. But like on all these shows, like he's been on The Simpsons, he's been on
right.
a bunch of other things. He just like will pop in and, you know, be himself or be, you know, like whatever. But like, yeah, he'll do a voice stint for Rugrats and all that kind of different stuff. And so he was just like a lovable person in all the respects that I knew him in. And
right.
I think that's such a good thing that he kept it, you know, running for so long.
Oh yeah.
Everything. So that's why it's been so hard to find a replacement for him, I think.
I know. I mean, because at this point, with the game being so sophisticated, someone has to be able to jump in and make it look like they've been doing it for 40 years, basically.
Right.
You know, to have the same kind of feel and continuity.
I mean,
which nobody's obviously
Bob Barker.
Done it that long. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting, because Bob Barker had a great personality for that show and all that kind of different stuff.
Right.
But I think it's interesting with like IBM, like the IBM computer going on Jeopardy, and the thing with Ken Jennings and other people who have had like crazy runs and all that kind of different stuff. Like there's controversy. Like if you look into it, where some people are like, they're like, oh, they started like getting gauging questions against like this person's knowledge base to get them off the show, you know, and like, or vice versa. Like they've geared it towards certain people so that they'll stay on the show and get better ratings and all that kind of different stuff. So like, and you got to think like, you know, unless these questions are literally just written by people who have no control and are free of influence of all the producers, like there has to be some kind of bias, like there could be bias in these questions, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh man, like people answer those animal questions way too easily. We need to come up with like way harder animals. Right. Except for that mink question. That mink question screwed everybody.
Question. Yeah.
Or it was a weasel. Like that's the answer.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was mink, but it was like sable? No. Mink? No. What? It's
but
like,
then at the end he's like,
it's
a weasel, but in the winter it's a what is it?
Something with a G.
You know, it's E. Yeah.
Oh,
Urin,
yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay.
You're like, really?
So,
okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I would say that there's, you know, you need somebody that you can trust, you know?
Right.
And everything like, because I think on The Simpsons, if I'm remembering correctly, like, doesn't he like make, or like almost make like Homer pay, like when he goes negative or something, and like,
I don't know.
Like, and then like there's like goons or something like that. Like, oh, I gotta stuff, but
you have to look it
but
up.
yeah, like, but this show has been in. It's made every possible, like every possible parody.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How many times have you been involved in some kind of Jeopardy for class or something?
For sure. So many times. It's so ingrained in our culture, and to a degree that we just don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Which is kind of crazy. It's one of those things that's like, it's almost under the radar, and yet everybody knows it. It's not, I mean,
right.
It's under the radar in the sense that we just like, it's in the zeitgeist, so we don't actively think about it until we're like, oh, let's do a trivia day. Okay, Jeopardy question. Like, I don't know if I'm putting forward what I'm trying to articulate here, but just something like that permeates a whole culture. Can't go to somebody and be like, you know Jeopardy, right? And they'd be like, what's Jeopardy? What's that? You're like, get out of here. You're like, you mean Double Jeopardy? That movie?
Exactly. And
you're like, no, not the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Ashley Judd.
No. Yeah, it's so terrible. So I'm actually looking it up. So it's Marge goes on Jeopardy and she's down $5,200. And when I asked you if you knew the rules, and he's like, judges, and snaps his fingers, and these like goons come out the back. Because that's the other thing is, they end with the joke like she's not going to get the home version and everything. That's the other element that we didn't really get in either of these necessarily. There was a couple of like, okay, I'm going to give it to you, but like, yeah, they're like whatever. There are people that are sitting off to the side that like have the full details of whatever and are going to judge whether that answer is close enough or not,
Right. And
so it's that's another common trope is just like Alex is like, judges? I'm sorry, we can't accept that.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, okay. Which is interesting why that he didn't throw to that with the two mistranslations. Like maybe they have an earpiece now where it's like...
I brought those up earlier, and I don't know if I connected it to this, but just when you were talking about him knowing the answers to the questions, he had, for the things that are hard to pronounce, he has to know the correct pronunciation.
Right.
There's not really enough time for him to go to somebody and say, is that the correct pronunciation all the time? Like, and on both of those, he didn't, it didn't seem like there was enough time for somebody to say, oh, that he said it wrong. He was just like, oh, I'm sorry, that's not right. And then moved on. And he knew the correct pronunciation off the bat. So he'd either, practiced and knew it or whatever. So I think you're right, though. He had time with the questions and so he knew.
Because at the same time, again, man, he's been doing this for 37 years.
Right.
Like, it's more of his call at this point than any of the producers or judges, because he's been the face of it. He's been the, like, again, it's like good luck replacing me kind of a threat if he ever had to do something like that. Because it's like, so I can imagine at this point he's gone over the question, the clues, and he's gone over the correct responses and all that kind of different stuff so much, and he knows what the judges are going to say that he doesn't have to throw. Like, I would be interested to see if there's like statistics on. Yeah, in the early days, he's like, "Ooh, that's I don't know about that." Judges? No. Oh, yeah, okay. But at this point, he's just like, I know what they're going to say. They're going to shoot you down, so just move on. Like,
right. Well,
I've been doing this for forever.
So highly defined over that many years that he's just like,
exactly.
Nope.
We're not taking mispronunciations anymore. Like, we're not doing it.
Right.
If you don't write legibly, like in Final Jeopardy,
right? I can't get it to.
I'm not going for smudges.
Right. Right.
And don't write more than you need to, or because at the same time I could see every conceivable like little trick has tried to been played, and he's just like, oh, don't even bother.
he's like I don't know.
So anyway, what would you rate this one?
Oh, I still think it's got to be an All About It. Like, I don't know, man. It's just a good all around show. Like, you know, it's a good game and it's lasted forever for a reason. Like, you know, it's a good format, and that last episode, Alex was on. Like, he nailed it. He knew what was up and down. Like, he wasn't any slower than he, you know, or faster necessarily than he was in '84. Like,
yeah, I mean, he reads it so legibly, or not legibly, so perfectly.
Oh yeah,
to where
the emphasis in the right places and all of that. Like
a little bit of flair every once in a while, makes fun of people and stuff. Yeah, definitely all about, because like you said, you know, it's lasted for so long. I think partially too because, I mean, my own bias to it was like, this has just got to get harder and harder and harder and harder, or else why would you go on Jeopardy? You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's not. The thing about Jeopardy is its wide spans and its rapid fire. Like, this is, I guess, what I didn't understand because I didn't watch it, like, you know, consistently and everything like that. It's the point of, like, oh yeah, you'll probably know, like, at least one of the things in this category, unless it's completely out of your wheelhouse, like, and you know, French cuisine versus 50s TV versus whatever.
Right.
And it's like you might know one or two, but like, can you consistently answer 5 questions in this category with the risk of losing money?
Right. And not only that, but with the format itself, sometimes the answer given as the clue is ambiguous enough that if you're not listening carefully, you could mistake what it's asking for, that it's asking for the person.
Right.
No, it's actually asking for the movie.
Yeah.
And there was, I don't remember what the question was, but there was definitely at least 2 in this later episode where I was like, oh, it's this. And then they're like, no, it's, you know, it's the TV show or whatever. And I was like, oh, I did not hear that right, because I thought it was the person versus the TV. And then so ambiguity comes in there, and they're so cleverly written that sometimes you can lose the thread a little bit and then think it's the one thing when it's not. And that's part of the game, and that's part of why the format is weird like it is, because it can throw you off.
Right. But as you rightfully pointed out, the other thing is facts can be recycled in this context because, A, who's watching, you know, and has the memory to say, like, oh, they asked this question in 1984 in the first episode, you know, like, Chuck Yeager was the answer. But you can do the same thing 5 different ways, because you could say, you know, like, the birthplace of Chuck Yeager, or like, what is Chuck Yeager best known for, or what branch of service was Chuck Yeager in?
What was the name of the plane that he flew? Or like, you know,
where did he fly it? Like, over this lake, you know, like, so that one fact in your mind can be asked 100 different ways, and even that same thing of who is Chuck Yeager, or who is, you know, you can say that like 5 different ways, you know, like it could be, the clue could be 5 different things, and it's like, who is Chuck Yeager, who is, you know, whatever. And so I think that's a very interesting point that they probably didn't do on purpose, of like, well, the answer is Chuck Yeager, and what did he do? It's like, you know, because they didn't talk about breaking the sound barrier in the first episode, so.
Right. Well,
I said John Glenn.
They alluded to it in the answer.
Right.
But it wasn't specifically stated as the sound barrier was I forget how they worded it, but there was some way they worded it. I was like, this. I'm sure they're referencing the breaking of the sound barrier here in this movie, The Right Stuff. But yeah, they didn't specifically say that. So
yeah, and so that's the thing is like, yeah, you could have like, one page of an encyclopedia or one paragraph of an encyclopedia give you 10 different questions both ways. You know? Like what is this? And then who is this? And then what did they do? Where did they do it? All that kind of different stuff. And so I think that's the other thing. And like I said, it's so fascinating that it is accessible. Like you could watch it and be like, oh, I know that one. Oh, oh, I thought I knew that. Oh, I know this. Oh, I know this. Oh, I have no idea about that. Oh, and like, feel like I could go on Jeopardy. It's like, no, Jeopardy is like like going on Jeopardy is so stressful. Like now that I've played that game, like the home version with having to get the timing down and stuff like that, I would be so frustrated because I was just like, oh, I buzzed into at the wrong time. And I screwed myself.
Well, I don't think I would do well.
Right.
Just knowing my my ratio of getting the final Jeopardy question right, like it's such a pivotal part of the game, and I usually don't get it. So just knowing that fact alone, I know that I would probably do terrible. So
that's the thing, though. I'm gonna say a surety is better than a question, than having it be a question where if you're like, I know I'm going to get this wrong, I'm going to bet $1, and hope everybody else gets it wrong.
Yeah.
There's that gives you a strategy to be like, I just need to build up as much money as possible to get me in a good position and then bet nothing unless I'm 100% sure that, but even so, even if the category was like Beatles, it could be some obscure thing of where did Yoko and John meet? And you're like, oh,
some museum. God. I forget what the name of the museum was.
See? Yeah, you'd be like, oh no. Wasn't that one? That was one of the one. There was a Beatles questions that somebody got wrong because it was Come Together.
Oh yeah, right? And he said I'm the walrus, which I almost made that mistake, but that's one I got. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh no, he's like, come together right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Good old Alex.
Alex, right. we will miss you. And,
for sure. And
not just your Jeopardy, but just, all the other awesome things that you did. And
yeah, man.
The way you, permeated so much of pop culture. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
End of an era.
Yeah. So that's a taste of our beginning of the end. We have one similar to this. We don't keep score necessarily. But for Downton Abbey, The Golden Girls, The Office, and
The Good Wife.
What have we done? And The Good Wife. Yes.
Yeah.
Over on our Patreon, Tag and Brando. So join us on there.
We would love the support if you thought you could.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and any suggestions you have on a TV show that we should watch the first and the last of, we're trying to do ones mostly that we haven't seen, so we kind of have to draw a lot of blanks and everything like that. But we're happy to have you guys now, and happy to hear back from you guys in the future. Tag and Brando at Gmail on the Facebook and on Instagram as well. Twitter, but nobody tweets anymore.
Especially not us.
Yes. All right. Join us and I don't remember his signature sign off, and I wouldn't try to steal it anyway. See everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.